Hey there, and welcome back to Pure Golf Talk. Today, we have a very special guest joining the pod, Taylor Zarzour, the host and director for SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio and the voice for golf's major championships. Taylor, welcome on.
Thank you, Taft. I'm glad to be here. Hope you're doing well.
Yes, sir, doing great. First, I have to ask you, have you recovered from the PGA Championship? I know it was at your home club
Yeah.
of Quail Hollow. Have you been able to take a deep breath, or are you ready to go for this major this week?
Yeah, it was an exhausting week. It was an incredibly fulfilling week, but I did a lot. I did some TV work for ESPN in the morning, and then I did the radio broadcast in the afternoon for SiriusXM. And I mean, pinch me. Those are two amazing things to get to do, especially on your home course. I've dreamed of a lot of things to be able to get to do in sports. I never dreamed of calling a major championship on the golf course where I play. That was not something that I had on my bingo card, but it was amazing. Incredible experience and one that I'll always treasure. But yeah, it was exhausting. Fortunately, I had a few weeks to recuperate and recover from it, and get some good rest. And so, yes, I'm ready to go for the U.S. Open. We'll do the radio coverage, just the radio coverage of that. NBC, of course, has the television coverage. They do a fantastic job, and we have a lot of friends that are connected to their broadcast. But we'll be doing the radio coverage each day, and I'm going to be more of an executive. You mentioned that I'm the director of the channel, Taft. I'm going to do a little bit of broadcasting, but I'm gonna sit back and let my friends Brian Katrick and Brendan DeYoung and the rest of our team really be in charge of the play-by-play, and I'll wear my executive hat most of the week. I will do the winning interview on Sunday night, and that'll air on Golf Channel on the Monday after the U.S. Open. It'll also be on SiriusXM, but I'm not going to do a whole lot of broadcasting. I'm gonna walk around, shake some hands, and hopefully get to really consume a lot of this major championship like almost every other fan would.
Well, a Taylor Zarzour story for you and for the rest of our audience. Whether
Hmm.
you know it or not, I've been standing beside you or in your area for the last few major championship finishes when you've been on the call. And it's one of those times where I want to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Taylor, Taft Gantt, nice to meet you." Because even though you're nice enough to come on this podcast, we've yet to formally meet in person. But going back to PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, I was standing but literally right beside you and your buddy Johnson Wagner, as you guys called the finish of Scottie's incredible performance there. And then also back in Pinehurst for what was
Mm.
my home game when the U.S. Open was here in 2024. And we were walking up the 18 fairway together as Bryson was trying to finish off Rory. So just being in the midst of greatness there as you've been on the finishing calls for both of those majors, that'll be nice to take a back seat now and do more of a directing role.
Yeah, I will. I'm excited about that. And that's cool that you got to experience those great moments in major championships in your home state. And what a thrilling moment we had last year with Bryson and Rory there at Pinehurst. And then to have the number one player in the game, Scottie Scheffler, win at Quail Hollow was something that I know everybody that loves North Carolina will always treasure, that the best player in the game won a major championship in our state. And those three names that you just referenced, those are the biggest three names in golf right now. You know, they're Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau. And the fact that all three of them have won major championships in the last 12 months is really cool. And at least a couple of them are in good form. We'll see about Rory since he won the Masters. We haven't really seen his best yet, but maybe we'll see it at Oakmont next week. I absolutely imagine that Bryson will be a factor, but make no mistake, Taft, Scottie Scheffler is as big a favorite going into this event as I can remember in at least a decade.
Well, I wanted to give you the floor here because you did share on Golf Channel earlier this week that although Rory is coming off a Masters win, a Players win, and he won
Yeah.
at Pebble, three incredible tournaments to take this year, you do believe Scottie Scheffler is the best player in golf this week and the player to beat. I want to ask, if not Rory, then who do you think will have a best shot at contending and maybe chasing down Scottie next week at Oakmont?
Bryson. Um, Bryson is the defending champion. He's a two-time U.S. Open champion. I don't think the toughness of the setup at Oakmont bothers him as much as maybe it bothers some others. watching him the way he won at Wingfoot 5 years ago in extraordinarily thick rough, albeit in September, not in June, showed me that, you know what, even when he's offline off of the tee, he can recover because of his brute strength. He sent out some videos when he was playing a practice round at Oakmont in the last few days and dropped some golf balls around the green, and you almost couldn't find the golf ball, and he was in shock when he went up to him. And then watching the way he was able to play out of those terrible lies around the greens, this guy's used to it. I think his short game is underrated. I think we talk about his brute strength so much. Bryson's really good around the greens, and he's become a great putter. Obviously, how stiff he is with that club in his hands and just how much he's worked on it to perfection, I think will serve him well at Oakmont next week. The only thing that gives me pause, Taft, is he hasn't been so precise with his approach shots so far this year, especially at the Masters in that final round. It really let him down. And to a degree at the PGA Championship, he struggled with that, especially when there was a wind that was moving from right to left, like on 17 at Quail Hollow. He had a draw with a right to left wind and it ended up in the water. Landed on the green and rolled into the water. The thing that makes Scottie Scheffler so impressive to me is Scottie considers the elements and he's able to make an adjustment. If there's a right to left wind, he's going to hit a cut into that right to left wind. If there's a left to right wind, well then he's going to try to fight it against that left to right wind. Bryson's going to have to be able to execute both shots both ways. To me, if he's going to be the best player in the game, I think that's the one thing that maybe separates him and separates Scottie Scheffler. But I do like his chances to be around the leaderboard. In every American major in the last couple of years, we've seen Bryson right there at the top, and I'd be surprised if we don't see him there again. But to me, we have not, since Tiger Woods in his prime, I don't think it's been fair to give one player versus the field until this week. I really believe it's fair to do that we could have a Scottie Scheffler versus the field conversation, given what he just achieved in Charlotte, given what he just achieved at the Memorial, the way that he's playing right now, his ability to execute shot after shot. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't have a chance to win this U.S. Open. And as we sit here right now, Taft, I expect him to win the U.S. Open.
Well, Vegas agrees with you. He's a heavy favorite at 3-1. Taylor,
Yeah.
one of my favorite things about you as a media personality, whether it's on Golf Channel, on your social channels, you're not afraid to give a bold take. And that is a bold take that I agree with. Scottie versus the field is as good and strong as that argument has been since Tiger Woods. A course like Oakmont is going to require the best players to be at the top of the leaderboard because of how tough the course is going to play, the conditions with it being set up for its 10th U.S. Open there. You look back to the last time it was there in 2016, only 4 players were under par. Dustin Johnson, 4 under, was the leader. There's only 3 guys that went under par, and after that, it was a whole lot of big numbers. A fun fact about the U.S. Open in Oakmont, when I was looking back in 2016, +6 was the cut. So if you were +6 or worse, you did not make it to the weekend. If you were to stay at +5 or better, you would have finished inside the top 20. And I think
Wow.
that we're going to see something similar this week at Oakmont, just with how high the scores are going to be and the brute challenge that these players are going to be faced with. We've mentioned the top 3 names in the sport and the top 3 favorites for the U.S. Open: Scottie, Bryson, Rory. Who are some players that might stand out to you as guys that can face Oakmont and potentially see their name towards the
Yeah.
top of the leaderboard come the weekend?
I'll give you two. Harris English played really well in the Masters, finished in the top 12, and then he played early on Sunday and shot 65 early in the PGA Championship, and it ended up being tied for second when it was all said and done. He's been terrific in the majors so far. He has a good record in U.S. Opens. He's a straight high ball hitter. And that is very effective at a place like Oakmont, where you've got to find fairway after fairway after fairway and give yourself a chance to play from the short stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Harris English continue the trend of good play in majors in the third major of the year. Another name to watch is Corey Connors. Corey is a fairway finder. I mean, the guy, and he makes a ton of pars. He's really, really accurate from tee to green. If there's one thing that lets Corey down, it's his putting. And he's got to be able to make more putts if he's going to have a chance to win these major championships. But he's a top 25 machine. He has 5 top 10s this year. That's the second most of any player on the PGA Tour without a win. Maverick McNeely has 6. Connors has 5. I think Corey will be a factor there next week as well. So those are 2 names to watch. And it's interesting what you said about scoring in 2016. I believe if you give Dustin Johnson that shot back on the 8th hole where his ball was moving, I believe he actually might have been 5 under Taft. You'll have to check that for me. But they finished his score at 4 under as the event was going on. But I believe when it was over, they gave him that shot back. So I think maybe he actually was 5 under par. He should have been 5 under par. It was a really weird ruling that he had there. Regardless, it's not expected by the Oakmont faithful that 4 or 5 under will win the U.S. Open. I think if you asked Oakmont people, the president of the club, the members of the club, the head pro of the club, the former head pro of the club, I think they would like to see over par win this U.S. Open. They take a lot of pride in the fact that they have the hardest golf course in the United States. And when it is set up like it will be next week, I think it is the hardest. Shinnecock to me is the ultimate championship course, but they have to stage that golf course in order to have a U.S. Open. Taft, you could play Oakmont in October, you could play it in April, you can play it in June, you could play it during the US Open or at any other year, and it's just about the same setup. It has 5-inch thick rough, it has greens that are rolling about 14 on the stimp meter. The members actually joke and say, if you want to have a US Open here, we're going to have to slow down the greens. Typically, their greens are even faster for member play than they are for the US Open. You have that kind of combination. I think that you're going to see over par win the U.S. Open. Now, that depends on weather. Now, the last time when Dustin Johnson won at, let's say, 5 under par, we had some soft conditions. We had rain there on Thursday and Friday and had to come back early on Saturday and Sunday to finish those rounds before completing the final round on Sunday afternoon. If they get normal dry weather, I think over par wins. If it's soft, then there's a chance it'll be under par.
That's why Oakmont and the USGA are such a match made in heaven. They both want to see hard,
Yep.
brutal golf, and over par score to win next week would be very, very exciting. My 2 players for you for Oakmont, I really like Shane Lowry this week. I think he is in good form. He's been so close, sniffing a win all week. And how good would it be in terms of the storylines in golf? You have your Rorys, you have your Brysons, you have your Scotties that have been so good the last 12 months, like you mentioned. Shane Lowry getting a win, headed back to Portrush for the Open Championship, I think would be a very exciting name. One reason I like Shane is because he's finished inside the top 20 the last 2 U.S. Opens. Taylor, I didn't prepare you for this, but I do want to give you a little trivia question.
Okay.
As a golf guy yourself, I have full faith that you can get these. There's only been 6 guys, in addition to Shane Lowry, that finished inside the top 20 the last 2 years at the U.S. Open. And this
Ooh.
includes top 20 and ties. If you can name those 6, you can impress the pure golf faithful.
Rory McIlroy is definitely one of them.
Yep.
Man, what a good question. Patrick Cantlay?
Cantley is one, and he's the other player that I'm going to look out for this week in addition to Shane Lowry.
Okay, so we have 6 total or 7 total?
We have 7 total. You've named 3 of them
Okay.
now. Cantley,
Rory,
Lowry, Rory.
Cantlay, and okay, yeah.
4 more.
Corey Connors?
Connors is not
No.
inside that number.
Wyndham Clark won it 2 years ago, but I don't even know if he made the cut last year at the US Open.
I don't believe so, no.
All right, so that's not on there. Ricky came so close 2 years ago in LA.
Yep.
Ricky in the top 20 last year?
No, he was not in Pinehurst.
You're gonna have to give me the answers. So I'm gonna keep just guessing on you here.
Well, the remaining ones are tough. Other than Bryson, Colin Morikawa is on
Hmm.
there. Another major champion, Xander Schauffele, who was so
Yeah,
unbeatable last year. And then a sneaky one, fellow Georgia Bulldog, Russell Henley.
that's another guy at Oakmont to watch because of how
Yeah,
straight of a hitter he is too. He's been really struggling with his putting in the last month or so,
yeah,
but he's had an extraordinary year with ball striking. Obviously, already a winner this year at Bay Hill, so that's another good one to like. So your 2 guys that you like are Cantlay, who's trending finally
yeah,
this year. You
yeah.
like him a lot, and you like Shane Lowry, who was the 54 hole leader the last time the U.S. Open was at Oakmont. back in
Correct.
2016. So those are two excellent picks. I'm not going to argue with either one of them. If there's one thing I'm watching for with Shane Lowry is how does he handle being around the lead going into the final round? He's put a lot of pressure on himself the last few times he's been in a position like that, and he's gotten extremely frustrated by the fact that he's not been able to cross the line, and it's impacted him in his next start. I wonder, as we watch the RBC Canadian Open this weekend, and then we watch the U.S. Open, what impact that has on Lowry being around the lead, because it seems like there's a mental hurdle that he has to overcome. Colin Morikawa's been going through that, still going through that to some degree. And it wouldn't surprise me if Cantlay does that. As somebody that would like to see the American team perform well in the Ryder Cup this year, Taft, we need Patrick Cantlay on that team. And Patrick
Yeah.
Cantlay has not given Keegan Bradley a reason to put him on there yet. So it'd be good to see him play well at Oakmont next week.
Speaking of the Ryder Cup, I know that you were there 2 years ago at Marcus Simone. How many Ryder Cups have you been to, just to put it on the record?
Yeah, I think I've only been to three of them. Yeah, I went to Hazeltine in 2016, watched the American team win there. That was the first one that I've been to. Yeah, and then I went in 2021 at Whistling Straits, another American victory, and then watched the European team whip the Americans in Italy, as you said a couple of years ago. So just three of them, but I love it. I cannot wait to get to Bethpage. It's going to be a busy time of year for me with football season as well, with some SEC and some Tennessee Titans responsibilities. So I might have to duck out of there after Friday, but I will be there Friday morning. Friday morning's my favorite time of the Ryder Cup, and it's one of my two favorite days in all of golf. The Sunday at the Masters would be number one, but the first day, the first session of the Ryder Cup, and all that energy and dark 30 on the tee is just
Yeah.
extraordinary, and it's going to be a zoo at Bethpage. I can't wait for that.
You can't beat it. I can't wait for your coverage of it on your social channels and with your other responsibilities when you are at Bethpage on that Friday. This was not,
Colt Knost
yeah,
and I will be doing the coverage there, Taft, and Colt will have tears in his eyes. I'm going to go ahead and tell you now. I'm going to try to talk to Colt on the air, and he will have tears in his eyes just because of how powerful of a moment it is.
that's super special. One that is very high on my bucket list, if not number one for all sports. This was not on the script that I have here for US Open preview, but while we're on the Ryder Cup topic, I need to settle a debate that's in my friend group chat right now. Is Ben Griffin a US Ryder Cup member this year?
If it were today, no question. I mean, he's number 7 in the standings right now, and there's no way you can leave number 7 in the standings off. The guy last year had a good year. He almost won the RBC Canadian Open last year and had a good year on the PGA Tour. He's had a great year so far this year. And you think of the fact that he's already a two-time winner this year, winning the Zurich Classic with Andrew Novak, then winning by himself at the Colonial, then coming up second to at least winning the Mortal Field and finishing second at Memorial to Scottie Scheffler. He's on an extraordinary run. Yeah, I mean, right now, today, no question. I mean, we're still in June, so you for 2+ months, really through the playoffs, you're going to have to keep showing this kind of form. And there are starts and stops. You think of it, if we were having this conversation, Taft, in March, I would have said Russell Henley is an absolute lock to be on the Ryder Cup team. But really, since then, Russell's game has struggled. So you look at the last couple of months, he's not been able to play at that same level. And Keegan Bradley may say, well, you're not playing your best right now if you go through a month or two of struggles. So I do think you have to keep it going, or at least show some level of keeping it going in order to be on the team. But I would predict that Griffin will be on that team, and he absolutely would be on the team if Bradley made the decision today.
I agree with you. I think that he deserves a spot right now, and it only looks like he's going to continue to prove that going forward. You mentioned how Team America needs some wins, and a guy like Patrick Hanley is someone that we're going to look to step up over the next couple months. Because when you look at the winners on the PGA Tour in 2025, it's a lot of European names. Is that something that concerns you going into Bethpage, that this might be the year that the European team finally sneaks out a win on United States soil?
I am very concerned about it right now. Yeah, I think this is the deepest team the Europeans have ever had. Typically, the Europeans are competitive 1 through 6 or 1 through 8, and then you get to positions 9, 10, 11, 12, and there is a very big difference between the level of player the European team is putting out there and the American team. I don't think that's the case. In fact, you could argue the European team is deeper than the American team is this year. Victor Hovland is so far down in the standings right now, nowhere to be seen in the European Ryder Cup rankings, yet I think that he'll be a lock to be on that team because of the way he's performed in the past. There's a few guys that are on that list that are nowhere to be found that I think Luke Donald is going to have to say, well, I know Thomas Dietrich's had a great year, or I know both of these Højgaards are playing so well, or wow, look at Thorbjorn Olesen suddenly, he's playing well, or look at Alex Noren, he played well in the PGA Championship. And he's going to have to decide, do I put one of those guys on, or do I put John Rahm on the team, and do I put Victor Hovland on the team? I think there's going to be several choices like that. The American team right now, it's give me 12 guys that are playing well. Who are those 12 guys? You got 5 or 6 that you can count on, but then after that, it's somebody needs to show me something to prove they're on the team. And I predict that Patrick Cantlay and Jordan Spieth are going to do that in the months to come. I think that Keegan Bradley is going to have to put himself on the team. Even if he doesn't want to put himself on the team and he doesn't make the team automatically, I think that the other vice captains like Brandt Snedeker are going to say, Keegan, you're a top 20 player in the world. You have a chance. You're on the leaderboard every week. You're playing. I think that there's a likelihood that that's going to happen. So, but right now, as we sit here today, I think the European team should be the favorite, and I think they're the deeper team. My European friends keep telling me, stop saying that. You don't believe that. We like to play the underdog card. I'm not doing this to try to play any mind tricks on anyone. I really genuinely believe the European team right now is better than the American team. But we have a couple months to change that.
No, Taylor, I'm right there with you. I think that it's on every American Ryder Cup fan's radar is this European team's coming in hot. Last question about the Ryder Cup, and then I want to get into a little bit of the Taylor Zarzour story to close. How big is the home crowd advantage going to be for someone who's experienced Ryder Cups in person? You got the ruckus New York crowd
Yeah.
going to be there. How much of a factor does that actually play once the first tee ball is in the air?
I think it's a huge factor on Friday morning. And I think that the European players are going to be a bit rattled by the crowd. And it'll be the rowdiest crowd they've ever played in front of. And they may be a little uncomfortable with that, and they probably will react to it a little bit. We've seen we've seen American fans get under Rory McIlroy's skin in the past. We've seen a number of players have to deal with that, and I think they're going to have to deal with it at Bethpage. What I wonder is what will that crowd feel like if the European team all of a sudden builds an advantage on Friday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, and the American team is trailing going into Sunday. You experiencing New York crowds for Yankee games or for Giants games or for a number of different sports, they will turn on their own if they don't perform the way that they want them to. So
Great point.
if the American team is not playing up to their standard, you could see them turn on the American team as this thing gets going. But at the beginning, it will be hostile towards the European team.
Well, it's going to be a very exciting week of golf in that late September window. And I need to ask you, Taylor, how the heck are you going to be able to focus on golf when you have such a busy fall ahead of you? You've been calling SEC college football for years, and now recently it was announced that you'd be the lead broadcaster for the Tennessee Titans. First off, congratulations. Much deserved on that new role. And then secondly, how does one contain so much sports knowledge for one week, going into a Friday at the Ryder Cup, a Saturday and whatever SEC town you'll
Yeah.
be in, and then the back in Nashville for the Titans game on Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild week, that's for sure. I will be at Bethpage for most of that week. Typically, I would be in town in Nashville getting ready for the game, but I'll be working remotely most of that week from Bethpage getting ready for the Ryder Cup. And then on Saturday, I will do an SEC game like you said somewhere, and then Sunday I will be in Houston, Texas, actually, for the Titans and Texans game on Sunday, watching Cam Ward and C.J. Stroud battle it out in Houston. So it will be a busy weekend. But this is the biggest piece of advice I would give you, Taft. Be where your feet are. That's what I'll do that week. Is when I'm on Friday on the near the first tee with Colt Knost, I will be where my feet are, and I will be concentrating on calling the Ryder Cup there on Friday morning. And then when session one is over and I toss it to Brian Katrick, I will be wheeling it out of there to get on a flight at LaGuardia or JFK to go to whatever SEC stadium I need to be in later for Saturday's game, and it'll have all of my attention, all of it. I'll only be concentrating on that. And then on Sunday, as soon as that game's over with, I'll do the same thing for the Titans and concentrate on that. Now, most people would say you're crazy and that's too much and you've got all this going on. But my goodness, like I dreamed of doing all these things when I was a kid, and I'm living out lifelong dreams. So I think that it takes a ton of enthusiasm and joy, but it also takes a lot of focus. The other thing it takes is a lot of preparation in advance, weeks and weeks and weeks in advance. And if you do all of that work, like if I'm on, let's just say, if I go to the beach with my wife over the 4th of July, which I believe is what she wants to do, then there's going to be an hour or two where she doesn't know where I am, and I'm going to be focusing on the Ryder Cup, and I'll be taking notes, getting ready for that. I'll spend another hour or two during that beach trip focusing on the Titans roster. And once we get closer to the SEC season, I'll do the same thing for that game. So weeks in advance, I'll do some prep work to get ready for what will be a big week. But I mean, come on. And I've got some amazing friends in the business like Mike Tirico, who I've leaned on. And Mike is unbelievable at switching from one sport to the next day by day. And I've just watched his process of preparing a lot, weeks in advance for these events. And it's served him so well. And he's very good at being present. The other thing is I've got a great staff. I've got an incredible golf producer named Billy that many people watching maybe have seen or heard on the radio. Billy's amazing, and he helps me prepare. I've got a football guy named Kevin that is my same version of Billy that does that for football. And so I lean on these guys, and they're very helpful. Hey, man, in case you missed this is something you need to know for tomorrow. They're amazing at doing that. So I'll lean on them heavily and hopefully get some rest. Very important to do that. I think the biggest problem that most people have is they want to have fun with their buddies and they want to go out drinking and have a big night. You can't do that. If you're going to do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you're going to be effective and really be thoughtful and have your wits about you, you need to be sharp. You need to be well rested. So that'll be another thing I really focus on that week.
That's incredible advice that I really appreciate you sharing. This is my last one for you, Taylor. More for myself than for any of the listeners. And I think it's something that anyone in the sports media field that is on the come up has a question about finding your niche, choosing a sport that you want to do. When you were growing up and growing up in Alabama, wanting to be a sports broadcaster, I'm sure that there were multiple sports that you wanted to do. Was there ever a time that you felt like you needed to try and carve out a niche and choose one sport? And then if so, how were you able to start to dabble into others and get to the point where you are now, where you're at the patriarch of football in the NFL and SEC, and then also calling golf major championships and Ryder Cups?
Taft, I've changed my mind a million times about things that I wanted to do in broadcasting. When I was 20, 21, 22, what I thought I wanted is not at all what I ended up being. I am a sports broadcaster. That's what I always wanted to be. What exactly I thought I would be doing is very different from what I thought 25 years ago. And that is completely okay. There are a few things that I would say to you and to anyone else, and that is don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to try all sorts of different things. What it's going to tell you is how much you love it, but it's also going to tell you if you don't love it, which is maybe even more important. If you think you want to do something specifically in sports broadcasting or anything in life, and you go and do it and you realize you didn't want to do it, well, good on you. because you never would have known that unless you tried. And it may make you realize, man, I would rather do this instead. I did. I tried a lot of different things, but and eventually, as I got into my 40s, 7 years ago, I decided I only wanted to do football and golf moving forward. Now, there may be a day in the future I do a baseball game or a basketball game, and if so, that'll be great. But I decided I am going to try to do the highest level of football and the highest level of golf I can. And the same, there is one principle that has always really served me well when I've decided I wanted to do something is I have established the goal and then I've gone to the people that I think have influence over that goal that may be able to help me execute that goal. And I have said to them, tell me how I become qualified to do this. In some cases, they may say, well, you're already qualified. Or in some cases, they may say, well, here are the things that you need to do in order to be qualified. One of the biggest mistakes we make, I think, as people, is we feel like we're owed something. We feel like somebody should give us something. Give me this opportunity. You're not owed anything. What you can do is earn anything. And if you go to the people that have influence over that and you say, I want to be an SEC football commentator, how do I do it? What do I need to do in order to be qualified to do it? What reps do I need to get? What games do I need to do? How do I execute this plan? To me, that is the secret to any success that I've had is I've gone to those people that have influence and said, help me get there. How do I get there? How do I earn my way there? I don't want you to give it to me. I want you to show me the roadmap to getting there. And that's the biggest piece of advice I give you or anyone else is if you have a dream, whatever it is, go to the people that have influence over that dream and stay on them and say, how do I become qualified to do this?
Yeah, that's great. Your career is something that I look up to, and I know a lot of other people aspire to have. And you saying that you're living out your dreams by going to a Ryder Cup, to a SEC football game, back to Titans at Texans, you're living out your dream. That puts a smile on my face because I have similar dreams, and your career shows that it is possible with hard work, with being where your feet are, and by going out and getting it. So, Taylor, I really appreciate your time, and best of luck this week at the Canadian, and then best of luck going forward through the rest of the golf season and on to football. Thank you, Taylor.
Taft, I'm honored that you asked me to come on, and I'm really excited about your future and your career. You have a ton of talent, you have a ton of passion, and I'm excited to watch what's going to happen with you moving forward. All the best, my friend.
Really appreciate it. Take care.
You too.